Southwest Airlines Company is a major U.S. airline and the world's largest low-cost carrier, headquartered in Dallas, Texas. The airline was established in 1967 and adopted their current name in 1971. The airline has 44,831 employees as of December 2013 and operates more than 3,400 flights per day. As of June 5, 2011, it carries the most domestic passengers of any U.S. airline. As of July 2014, Southwest Airlines has scheduled service to 89 destinations in 41 states, Puerto Rico and international countries. Southwest Airlines has used only Boeing 737s, except for a few years in the 1970s and 1980s, when they leased a few Boeing 727s. As of August 2012, Southwest is the largest operator of the 737 worldwide with over 550 in service, each averaging 6 flights per day. In May 2011, Southwest acquired AirTran Airways, with integration of the carriers expected to be complete by 2014. On March 1, 2012, the company was issued a single operating certificate, technically becoming one airline. History. Early history. Southwest Airlines began with the March 15, 1967 incorporation of Air Southwest Company by Rollin King and Herb Kelleher to fly within the state of Texas. Kelleher believed that by staying within Texas, the airline could avoid federal regulation. 3 airlines started legal action which was not resolved for 3 years. Air Southwest prevailed in 1970 when the Texas Supreme Court upheld Air Southwest a unregistered trademark S right to fly within Texas. The Texas decision became final on December 7, 1970 when the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review the case, without comment. The story of Southwest a unregistered trademark S legal fight was turned into a children a unregistered trademark S book, Gum Wrappers and Goggles by Winifred Barnum in 1983. In the story, T.J. Love, a small jet, is taken to court by 2 larger jets to keep him from their hangar and to stop him from flying. In court, T.J. Love a unregistered trademark S right to fly is upheld after an impassioned plea from a character referred to as the lawyer. While no company names are mentioned in the book, T.J. Love a unregistered trademark S colors with those of Southwest Airlines, and the 2 other jets are colored in Braniff and Continental colors. The lawyer resembles Herb Kelleher. The book was adapted into a staged musical, Show Your Spirit, sponsored by Southwest Airlines, and played only in cities served by the airline. On March 29, 1971, Air Southwest Company changed its name to Southwest Airlines Company with headquarters in Dallas. Southwest began scheduled flights on June 18, 1971, Dallas to Houston and Dallas to San Antonio with 3 737-200s. The OAG for October 15, 1972 shows 61 flights a week each way between Dallas and Houston Hobby, 23 each way between Dallas and San Antonio, and 16 each way between San Antonio and Houston. No flights were scheduled on Saturdays. Southwest Airlines founder Herb Kelleher studied California-based Pacific Southwest Airlines and used many of its unregistered trademark S ideas to form the corporate culture at Southwest. Early flights used the same long legs and short nights theme for stewardesses on board typical Southwest Airlines flights. A committee including the same person who had selected hostesses for Hugh Hefner's Playboy jet selected the first flight attendants, females described as long-legged dancers, majorettes, and cheerleaders with unique personalities. Southwest Airlines and Herb Kelleher dressed them in hot pants and go-go boots. The New York Times wrote in 1971 that Southwest Airlines President Lamar Muse, me size frankly and repeated that Southwest Airlines has been developed from its inception around the ideas that have proven to be successful for Pacific Southwest Airlines we don't mind being copycats of an operation like that, referring to a visit he and other Southwest executives made to PSA as they assembled their operating plans. PSA welcomed them and even sold them flight and operations training. Muse later wrote that creating the operations manuals for his upstart airline was primarily a cut-and-paste procedure and it is said that a OE Southwest Airlines copied PSA so completely that you could almost call it a photocopy. The rest of 1971 and 1972 saw operating losses. One of the 4 737s was sold to Frontier Airlines and the proceeds used for payroll and other expenses. Southwest continued a schedule based on 4 aircraft but using only 3, so the 10-minute turn was born and was the standard ground time for many years. Wright Amendment. The Wright Amendment of 1979 is a federal law that governs traffic at Dallas Love Field, the pre-1974 airport in Dallas. It originally limited most non-stop flights to destinations within Texas and neighboring states. The limits began to phase out in 1997 and 2005. In 2006, the amendment was repealed, with some restrictions intact until 2014, but added a restriction in the number of gates allowed. When airline deregulation came in 1978, Southwest began to plan interstate flights from Love Field, causing groups affiliated with Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, including the city of Fort Worth, Texas, to push the Wright Amendment through Congress to restrict such flights. Under the amendment, Southwest and other airlines were barred from operating or even ticketing passengers on flights from Love Field to destinations beyond the states that border Texas. The Wright Amendment unregistered trademark S restrictions did not apply to aircraft with 56 or fewer seats. Southwest did not use the 56-seat loophole. Southwest's first schedule out of Texas was hobbied to New Orleans about February 1979. In 1997's Southwest unregistered trademark S efforts paid off with the Shelby Amendment, which added Alabama, Mississippi, and Kansas to the allowed destinations. Southwest began non-stop service between Dallas Love Field and Birmingham, Alabama. 1980s Euro 90s, Southwest hired their first black pilot, Louis Freeman, in 1980. In 1992 he was named the first black chief pilot of any major U.S. airline. Southwest's Houston pilot base opened on June 1, 1984. Houston was their first crew base outside of Dallas. On November 30, 1984 Southwest took delivery of their first Boeing 737 Euro 300. Southwest was the launch customer and as of May 2012 is the largest operator of the aircraft type. The first 737-300 was dubbed Kitty Hawk. Southwest paid $60.5 million in stock and cash for Muse Air when Muse was on the verge of collapse in 1985. After completing the acquisition, Southwest renamed Muse Air TranStar Airlines. TranStar became a wholly owned subsidiary of Southwest and operated as an independent airline. Unwilling to compete in a fair war against Frank Lorenzo's Texas Air, Southwest eventually sold TranStar's assets to Lorenzo in August 1987. Southwest moved into their current headquarters in 1990. Previously, the airline was headquartered in the 1820 Regal Row building in Dallas, by Love Field. At that time the headquarters had 256,000 square feet of space and approximately 650 employees. The current headquarters facility was built at a cost of $15 million in 1990 dollars. In early 1995 the building received an additional 60,000 square feet of space. As of 2006 about 1,400 employees worked in the 3-story building. In 1990, the airline registered their aircraft in Houston so they could pay aircraft taxes in Houston, even though the actual corporate headquarters were in Dallas. Southwest was not physically relocating any assets, but Texas state law allowed the airline to choose either Dallas or Houston as the city of registry of their aircraft. Southwest acquired Morris Air, a competing airline based in Salt Lake City, Utah, in 1992, paying $134 million in stock. After completing the purchase, Southwest absorbed the capital and routes of Morris Air into Southwest's inventory and service, including Morris Pacific Northwest destinations not previously served by Southwest. One founder of Morris Air, David Neeleman, worked with Southwest for a short period before leaving to found WestJet and then JetBlue Airways, a competing airline. On March 16, 1995, Southwest became one of the first airlines to have a website. Originally called the Southwest Airlines Home Gate, passengers could view schedules, a route map, and company information at iflies.com. Southwest.com is the #1 airline website for online revenue, according to Focusrite. Nielsen Net Ratings also reports that Southwest.com is the largest airline site in terms of unique visitors. In 2006, 70% of flight bookings and 73% of revenue was generated from bookings on Southwest.com. As of June 2007, 69% of Southwest passengers checked in for their flights online or at a kiosk. Southwest Airlines gained a reputation for outside-the-box thinking and proactive risk management, including the use of fuel hedging to insulate against fuel price fluctuation. Some analysts have argued against the style of profit-motivated energy trading Southwest did between 1999 and the early 2000s. They suggested that rather than hedging business risk, Southwest was simply speculating on energy prices, without a formal rationale for doing so. At present, Southwest has enjoyed much positive press from their energy trading skills. However, while most analysts agree that volatility hedges can be beneficial, speculative hedges are not widely supported as a continuing strategy for profits. In March 1996, the airline announced that it would begin to build a 300,000 square feet addition to the existing corporate headquarters at a cost of $30 a million in 1996 dollars. This occurred after, on Wednesday, March 13, 1996, the Dallas City Council unanimously voted to allow for the construction. The airline leased 2 additional tracts of land, a total of 10 acres of space, from the city of Dallas to build a new pilot training facility, a headquarters expansion, and additional parking spaces. A $9.8 million new pilot training facility was built on a 5 acres plot of land owned by the city of Dallas. It was scheduled to be completed spring 1997. With the new pilot training facility built, the old one would be removed and the company would expand its headquarters building to the north. 120,000 square feet of building space, which had a price of $16 a million including fixtures, was built, making the headquarters have a total of 436,000 square feet. The airline also leased 4.8 acres from the city of Dallas to build additional parking. 700 spaces were added to the existing 1,200. After the facilities announced in 1996 were added, Southwest had a total leasehold of about 24 acres of land, including its headquarters, training facilities, and parking. By the end of 1997 the expansion of the facilities at Love Field and several terminal improvements were expected to cost Southwest $47 a million. 2000s, repealing the Wright Amendment. In late 2004, Southwest began actively seeking the full repeal of the Wright Amendment restrictions. In late 2005, Missouri was added to the list of permissible destination states via a Transportation Appropriations Bill. New service from Love Field to St. Louis, Missouri and Kansas City, Missouri quickly started in December 2005. At a June 15, 2006 joint press conference held by the City of Dallas, the City of Fort Worth, Dallas Ft. Worth Airport, American Airlines, and Southwest Airlines, the said parties announced a tentative agreement on how the Wright Amendment was to be phased out. Both the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives passed Wright-related legislation on September 29, 2006, and it was signed into law by President George W. Bush on October 13, 2006. The new law became effective on October 16, 2006, when the FAA administrator notified Congress that any new aviation operations occurring as a result of the new law could be accommodated without adverse effect to the airspace. Southwest started selling tickets under the new law on October 19, 2006. Highlights of the agreement are the immediate elimination of through ticketing prohibitions, and unrestricted flights to domestic destinations 8 years after the legislation takes effect. Because of the agreement, nationwide service became possible for Southwest. The law also defined the maximum number of gates at Love Field. Southwest controls all of the Love Field gates except for 4 gates controlled by Delta Airlines and United. Southwest remains the dominant passenger airline at Love Field, maintains its headquarters, hangars, training centers, and flight simulators adjacent thereto, and reflects its ties to Love Field in its winged heart livery and its stock exchange ticker symbol. 2008 Euro 2009. In 2008, Southwest contracted with Pratt & Whitney to supply the proprietary Aircorpo water pressure washing system, which allows Southwest to clean grime and contaminants off engine turbine blades while the aircraft is parked at the gate. Frequent use of the Aircorpo system is estimated to improve fuel efficiency by about 1.9%. On March 6, 2008, Federal Aviation Administration inspectors submitted documents to the United States Congress, alleging that Southwest allowed 117 of its aircraft to fly carrying passengers despite the fact that the planes were not airworthy according to air safety investigators. In some cases the planes were allowed to fly for up to 30 months after the inspection deadlines had passed, rendering them unfit to fly. Records indicate that thousands of passengers were flown on aircraft deemed unsafe by federal standards. Southwest declined comment at the time, and U.S. Representative James Oberstar advised a hearing would be held. Southwest paid $7.5 million to acquire certain assets from bankrupt ATA Airlines in 2008. Southwest's primary reason for making the purchase was to acquire the operating certificate and New York LaGuardia Airport landing slots formerly controlled by ATA. While some preferential hiring was indicated at the time of the purchase, the transaction ultimately did not include the purchase of any aircraft, facilities or transfers of employees directly from ATA. On March 12, 2008, Southwest Airlines voluntarily grounded 44 planes to check if they needed further inspection. The FAA claimed that Southwest Airlines flew almost 60,000 flights without fuselage inspection. Southwest Airlines faced a $10.2 million fine if they violated FAA regulations. There have also been rumors that the FAA knew about Southwest Airlines violations but decided not to fine the airline because it would disrupt the service of Southwest. On March 2, 2009, Southwest settled these claims, agreeing to pay the FAA fines of $7.5 million for these safety and maintenance issues. The original fine of $30.2 million a sum which would have been the largest fine in the agency unregistered trademark's history was lowered after a year of negotiations. The FAA gave Southwest 2 years in which to pay the fine. On July 30, 2009, Southwest Airlines announced a $113.6 million bid for bankrupt Frontier Airlines Holdings, the parent company of Frontier Airlines. Southwest planned to initially operate Frontier as a standalone carrier, eventually absorbing the airline and replacing Frontier's aircraft with Boeing 737s. Less than 1 month after submitting its bid, Southwest learned on August 14 that it had lost the initial bidding to Republic Airways Holdings, and elected not to counter or pursue the deal further. Industry experts had expected Southwest to win the initial round of bidding, allowing Southwest to grow its presence in Denver and serve international destinations. Southwest stated that its requirement for pilots' unions at both companies to reach a negotiated agreement as a condition of acquisition was a key factor in its abandonment of its bid. On August 26, 2009, the FAA investigated Southwest for installing improper parts on about 10% of its jets. The work was performed by an outside maintenance company. The FAA stated that the parts do not present a safety danger, but the airline was given until December 24, 2009 to replace the parts with those approved by the FAA. The FAA is still determining whether it will fine Southwest or its vendor. 2010s, Airtran Airways acquisition. Southwest Airlines first announced the acquisition on September 27, 2010. And received final approval from the United States Department of Justice on April 27, 2011. On May 2, 2011, Southwest Airlines completed the acquisition of Airtran Airways by purchasing all of the outstanding common stock, corporate identity, and operating assets of Airtran Holdings, Incorporated, the former parent company of Airtran Airways. Southwest Airlines estimates the transaction's value at $3.2 billion and expects one-time costs to integrate the two airlines of $500 million, with cost synergies of approximately $400 million annually. the greatest impact on Southwest will likely be the elimination of a direct low-cost competitor, access to Atlanta, and the addition of landing slots in the New York and Washington, D.C. areas. Southwest obtained a single operating certificate from the United States Federal Aviation Administration on March 1, 2012, but expects that full integration of AirTran into Southwest's operations to continue until 2014. An entity called Guadeloupe Holdings was formed by Southwest and currently acts as a wholly owned subsidiary of Southwest Airlines and holding company for AirTran's current operations and assets. Southwest's organized labor groups have ceded contractual scope provisions pending acceptable negotiated seniority integration agreements. Operations of the two airlines will remain isolated until terms of this integration are fully negotiated. Bound by federal law, such as McCaskill bond legislation, as well as a four-party process agreement, Southwest has confirmed that it will integrate all of the pilots in a fair and equitable manner. The purchase adds 25 additional destinations previously not served by Southwest, including cities in Mexico, the Caribbean, and Atlanta, Georgia, an AirTran hub and, at the time, the largest U.S. city not served by Southwest. On October 10, 2011, USA Today reported that Southwest will work to no longer bank flights in Atlanta as AirTran did. AirTran's Boeing 737 orders and options will remain in place, and those deliveries to the Southwest operation will occur over the coming years. AirTran's 737 aircraft are in the process of being converted to Southwest's new Evolve interior and Canyon Blue livery. On February 14, 2013, Southwest announced that it had begun code sharing with AirTran. It took the first step on January 26, 2013 by launching shared itineraries in 5 markets. Southwest continued to launch shared itineraries with 39 more markets beginning February 25, 2013. As of April 2013, shared itineraries are available for travel between all Southwest and AirTran cities. In May 2014, it was announced the airlines will be fully integrated by December 29, 2014. 2011 a Euro present, for the 10th year in a row, Fortune magazine recognized Southwest Airlines in its annual survey of corporate reputations. Among all industries in 2004, Fortune has listed Southwest Airlines as number 3 among America Euro unregistered trademark's top 10 most admired corporations. On December 13, 2011, Southwest placed a firm order for 150 Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, becoming the launch customer for the type. First delivery is expected in 2017. In January 2012, Southwest Airlines expressed interest in serving Mexican and South American destinations out of Hobby. On May 30, 2012, Houston City Council approved Southwest's request for international flights from Hobby. Southwest agreed to invest at least $100 million to cover all costs tied to the Hobby upgrade, which includes designing and building 5 new gates and a customs facility. Construction at Hobby is expected to take 2 years, with international flights likely beginning in 2015. On April 11, 2012, Southwest introduced the 737 Euro 800 to the fleet. It seats 175 passengers as compared to the regular 143-seater 737-700. The first 737 Euro 800 was called Warrior 1 in salute of the Southwest employer's Euro unregistered trademark Warrior Spirit. Corporate identity, advertising, the company has employed humor in its advertising. Slogans include "Love is still our field," "Just plain smart," "There's somebody else up there who loves you," "You're now free to move about the country," "The low-fare airline," "Grab your bag, it's on," and "Welcome aboard." The airline's current slogan is "If it matters to you, it matters to us." In March 1992, shortly after Southwest started using the "Just Plain Smart" motto, Stevens Aviation, who had been using "Plain Smart" for their motto, threatened a trademark lawsuit. Instead of a lawsuit, the CEOs for both companies staged an arm wrestling match. Held at the now-demolished Dallas Sportatorium and set for 2 out of 3 rounds, the loser of each round was to pay $5,000 to the charity of their choice, with the winner gaining the use of the trademarked phrase. a promotional video was created showing the CEO's training for the bout was waiting, and distributed among the employees and as a video press release along with the video of the match itself. Herb Kelleher lost the match for Southwest, with Stevens Aviation winning the rights to the phrase. Kurt Howald, CEO of Stevens Aviation, immediately granted the use of Just Plain Smart to Southwest Airlines. The net result was both companies having use of the trademark, $15,000 going to charity and good publicity for both companies. Corporate Affairs, Headquarters. The Southwest Airlines headquarters is located on the grounds of Dallas Love Field in the Love Field neighborhood of Dallas, Texas. On September 17, 2012, Southwest broke ground on a new training and operational support building. The TOPS building is across the street from its current headquarters building. The property includes a 2-story, 100,000 square foot operations building that could withstand an F3 tornado. It also includes a 4-story, 392,000 square foot office and training facility with 2 levels devoted to each function. The new facilities will house 24-hour coordination and maintenance operations, customer support and services, and training. BOKA Powell was the project architect. Manhattan Construction is the general contractor. The project is scheduled for completion in late 2013, with occupancy beginning in 2014. Employment. As of year-end 2013, Southwest Airlines has 44,831 employees. The president and CEO of Southwest Airlines is Gary C. Kelly. Kelly replaced former CEO Jim Parker on July 15, 2004 and assumed the title of president on July 15, 2008, replacing former President Colleen Barrett. In July 2007, Herb Kelleher resigned his position as chairman. Colleen Barrett left her post on the board of directors and corporate secretary in May 2008 and president in July 2008. Both are still active employees of Southwest Airlines. In contrast to non-union competitor JetBlue Airways, Southwest maintains its profitability and low-fare, low-cost business model while being heavily unionized. The Southwest Airline Pilots Association, a union not affiliated with the Airline Pilots Association, represents the airline's pilots. The aircraft maintenance technicians are represented by the Aircraft Mechanics Fraternal Association. Customer service agents and reservation agents are represented by the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union. Flight dispatchers, flight attendants, ramp agents and operations agents are represented by the Transport Workers Union. Impact on carriers. Southwest has been a major inspiration to other low-cost carriers, and its business model has been repeated many times around the world. The competitive strategy combines high level of employee and aircraft productivity with low unit costs by reducing aircraft turnaround time, particularly at the gate. Europe's EasyJet and Ryanair are two of the best-known airlines to follow Southwest's business strategy in that continent. Other airlines with a business model based on Southwest's system include Canada's WestJet, Malaysia's AirAsia, Qantas's Jetstar, Philippines' Cebu Pacific, Thailand's Nok Air, Mexico's Volaris and Turkey's Pegasus Airlines. Although Southwest has been a major inspiration to many other airlines, including Ryanair, AirAsia and Jetstar, the management strategies, for example, of Ryanair, AirAsia and Jetstar differ significantly from those of Southwest. All these different management strategies can be seen as means of differentiation from other competitors in order to gain competitive advantages. Lobbying Texas Rail. Southwest has fought against the development of a high-speed rail system in Texas. In 1991 a plan was made to connect the Texas Triangle with a privately financed high-speed train system which would quickly take passengers from one city to the next. This was the same model Southwest Airlines used 20 years earlier to break into the Texas market where it served the same 3 cities. Southwest Airlines, with the help of lobbyists, created legal barriers to prohibit the consortium from moving forward, and the entire project was eventually scuttled in 1994, when the state of Texas withdrew the franchise. Destinations. As of July 2014, Southwest Airlines operates scheduled service to 89 destinations in 41 states, Puerto Rico and international countries, the newest being Sangster International Airport, Lyndon Pindling International Airport, and Queen Beatrix International Airport on July 1, 2014. Southwest does not use the more traditional hub-and-spoke flight routing system of most other major airlines, preferring instead the point-to-point system. It has notably large operations in certain airports. An average of 80% of Southwest passengers are local passengers, meaning only 20% of all passengers are connecting passengers. This is significantly higher than most airlines, where passengers often connect in hub cities. However, at Southwest's focus cities, the percentage of connecting passengers can reach 30%. Recent numbers indicate that the number of connecting passengers is steadily rising. As part of its effort to control costs, Southwest sometimes uses secondary airports in cities which generally have high costs. Secondary airports generally have lower costs and may be more convenient to travelers than major airports to the same destinations. For example, when servicing Chicago, Southwest uses Chicago Midway International Airport instead of the larger O'Hare International Airport. In Houston, Southwest uses William P. Hobby Airport while most carriers utilize George Bush Intercontinental Airport. Top served cities. International service. Southwest's first approach to international service came on April 19, 2012 when they signed a contract with the Amadeus IT Group which will initiate in 2014. This contract will give the airline the capability to begin flying to destinations outside of the United States. Before this contract was signed, Southwest's reservation system did not have the ability to serve international destinations. Southwest debuted the international reservation system on January 27, 2014 followed by the first international flights which began on July 1, 2014 to Aruba, Montego Bay, Jamaica and Nassau, Bahamas. Through the integration of AirTran, by the end of 2014, Southwest will add service to Aruba, Cancun, Mexico, Mexico City, Mexico, Montego Bay, Jamaica, Nassau, Bahamas, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic and San Jose Cabo, Mexico. Airline partnerships, past, Icelandair. In 1997, Southwest and Icelandair entered into interline and marketing agreements allowing for joint fares, coordinated schedules, transfer of passenger luggage between the two airlines in Baltimore and connecting passengers between several U.S. cities and several European cities. The frequent flyer programs were not included in the agreement. This arrangement lasted for several years but ended when Icelandair's service to BWI ended in January 2007. ATA Airlines, in a departure from its traditional go-it-alone strategy, Southwest entered into its first domestic code-sharing arrangement with ATA, which enabled Southwest Airlines to serve ATA markets in Hawaii, Washington, D.C., and New York City. At the time of ATA's demise in April 2008, the airline offered over 70 flights a week to Hawaii from Southwest's focus cities and PHX, LAS, LAX, and Oak with connections available to many other cities across the United States. The ATA Southwest codeshare was terminated when ATA filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on April 3, 2008. Southwest ultimately acquired the operating certificate and some of the landing rights of ATA in the ensuing proceedings. WestJet Airlines. On July 8, 2008, Southwest Airlines officially announced the intent to begin a codeshare agreement with WestJet of Canada, giving the two airlines the ability to sell seats on each other's flights. Originally, the partnership was to be finalized by late 2009, but had been postponed due to economic conditions. On April 16, 2010, Southwest and WestJet Airlines amicably agreed to terminate the implementation of a codeshare agreement between the two airlines. Volaris. Southwest announced its second international codeshare agreement on November 10, 2008, with Mexican low-cost carrier Volaris. The agreement allowed Southwest to sell tickets on Volaris flights. However, on February 22, 2013, the connecting agreement was terminated. It was said to be mutual between the airlines. Most industry experts believe that the expansion of the subsidiary of Southwest, AirTran Airways, into more Mexican markets, as a main reason for the termination of the agreement. Code-share agreements. Southwest does not participate in any major global airline alliances, but the airline has a code-share agreement with AirTran Airways. The agreement started only after Southwest acquired AirTran. Fleet. Current fleet. As of July 2014, the Southwest Airlines fleet consists of the following aircraft. The average fleet age is 11.3 years. Southwest is the world's largest operator of the Boeing 737. After completing the purchase of AirTran Airways, Southwest Airlines added AirTran's existing fleet of 737-700 aircraft to its fleet. However, the 717s acquired through AirTran will not be added to Southwest's fleet. Instead, they will be retired and transferred to Delta Airlines until the end of 2015. Newer Boeing 737-300 variants are being upgraded with retrofitted electronic flight decks and blended winglets to reduce operational costs. The retrofits will make the 737-300s operationally compatible with the 737-700 and support the airline's move to embrace the Global Positioning System-enabled Required Navigation Performance System. On December 15, 2010, Southwest announced a plan to add the Boeing 737-800 to the Southwest fleet. The 737-800 entered operations at Southwest on April 11, 2012 and has 175 seats, 38 more than the former largest plane in Southwest's fleet. All 800s include the Boeing Sky interior, and all Southwest-owned 800s are equipped with ETOPS capability. On December 13, 2011, Southwest placed a firm order for 150 Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft, becoming the launch customer for the type. First delivery is expected in 2017. All 737 MAX 8 aircraft will include the Boeing Sky interior. On May 15, 2013, Southwest became the launch customer for the Boeing 737 MAX 7 aircraft, and now has 30 MAX 7 aircraft on order. The first delivery is expected in 2019. They also announced an agreement to purchase 10 pre-owned 737-700s from WestJet for delivery in 2014 and 2015. Fleet history. Livery. Southwest's original primary livery was desert gold, red and orange, with pinstripes of white separating each section of color. The word Southwest appeared in white on the desert gold portion of the tail. On the original 737-200s, from June 1971, on the left side of the plane, the word Southwest was placed along the upper rear portion of the fuselage, with the word Airlines painted on the tail where Southwest is today N21SW. On the right side, the word Southwest was in the same place as today, but also had the word Airlines painted on the upper rear portion of the fuselage. N20SW. Southwest introduced the current Canyon Blue livery on January 16, 2001, the first primary livery change in Southwest's, then 30-year history. Spirit One was the first plane painted in the Canyon Blue fleet color scheme. The new livery replaces the former primary color, desert gold, with Canyon Blue and changes the Southwest text and pinstripes to gold. The orange and red stripes continue to be used. The pinstripe along the plane is drawn in a more curved pattern instead of the straight horizontal line separating the colors in the original. For aircraft equipped with blended winglets, the blended winglets are painted to include the text southwest.com. Southwest completed repainting its entire fleet with a new Canyon Blue livery in early 2010. However, the Colleen Barrett Classic, the Herbert D. Kelly 1, and the Metallic Gold 1, which are Boeing 737 Euro 700 aircraft, retain the original desert gold livery. However, Theses Classics do not have the black paint printed on the nose of the plane, and do not the number 1 heart on it. These few planes still fly today but they are rare. Special liveries. Some Southwest aircraft feature special liveries. Southwest gives these aircraft special names, usually ending in 1. All special liveries prior to Spirit One wore the standard desert gold, red and orange colors on the vertical stabilizer and rudder. Subsequent special liveries including Maryland 1, Slam Dunk 1 and others feature tails with the Canyon Blue livery. All earlier specials, with the exception of Triple Crown 1, have been repainted to match. Aircraft painted in special liveries have white painted blended winglets with the exception of Warrior 1 which added the split scimitar winglet in May 2014. Notes: 1. The first aircraft to be painted in the Shermu scheme was N334SW, a 737 a Euro 300, and it was later followed by N507SW and N501SW, both 737-500s. Subsequent to the retirement of Southwest's 737-200s, the 737-500s began to stay within a smaller geographic area formerly operated by the 737-200s, and as such, SeaWorld was no longer getting the optimal national exposure from these two aircraft. Two 737 a Euro 700 aircraft, N713SW and N715SW, were repainted as the new Shermu aircraft, and both N501SW and N507SW were repainted in canyon blue colors. In 2013, N334SW was retired, leaving two Shermu aircraft. The artwork on the nose of each aircraft states Shermu plus the overhead bins on the aircraft display ads for SeaWorld. Products and services, Southwest Experience. Southwest offers free in-flight non-alcoholic beverages with alcoholic beverages available as well for a price. Southwest is also one of the few airlines to offer Dr. Pepper as a beverage option. Southwest has complimentary peanuts or pretzels on all flights, and most flights have free Nabisco snacks. Southwest is known for colorful boarding announcements and crews that burst out in song. The singing is quite popular among passengers. Southwest maintains excellent customer satisfaction ratings. For many years, according to the Department of Transportation, Southwest ranked number 1 of all U.S. airlines for customer complaints. Southwest Airlines has consistently received the fewest ratio of complaints per passengers boarded of all major U.S. carriers that have been reporting statistics to the Department of Transportation since September 1987, which is when the DOT began tracking customer satisfaction statistics and publishing its Air Travel Consumer Report. Prior to 2007, Southwest boarded passengers by grouping the passengers into 3 groups, labeled A, B and C. Passengers would line up at their specified letter and board. In 2007, Southwest modified their boarding procedure by introducing a number. Each passenger receives a letter and a number 1 through 60. Passengers line up in numerical order within each letter group. In-flight entertainment, after completing a testing phase that began in February 2009, Southwest announced on August 21, 2009 that it would begin rolling out in-flight Wi-Fi internet connectivity via RO44's satellite broadband-based product. Southwest began adding Wi-Fi to its aircraft in the first quarter of 2010. The airline began testing streaming live television in the summer of 2012 and video on demand in January 2013. All 737-700s and -800s are now equipped with Wi-Fi, streaming live television and video on demand. Evolve Interior. On January 17, 2012, Southwest introduced a plan to retrofit its fleet with a new interior. Improvements include a modern cabin design, lighter and more comfortable seats made of eco-friendly products, increased under-seat space, new netted seat back pockets to provide more knee room, a new fixed-wing headrest and improved ergonomics. All Boeing 737-700s and -800s and select 737-300s now have the Evolve interior. A total of 78 737-300s will be retrofitted with Evolve, and Southwest expects to finish this by the end of 2013. Though not originally planned, because of space saved, Southwest was able to fit an extra row of seats on its planes. Rapid Rewards. Southwest first began to offer a frequent flyer program on June 20, 1987, calling it the Company Club. Unlike competitors' programs which were based on miles flown, the Company Club credited for trips flown regardless of distance. Southwest Airlines renamed its frequent flyer program Rapid Rewards on April 25, 1996. The original Rapid Rewards program offered 1 credit per one-way flight from an origin to a destination, including any stops or connections on Southwest Airlines. When 16 credits were accumulated in a 24-month period, Southwest awarded 1 free round-trip ticket that was valid for 12 months. Beginning March 1, 2011, Rapid Rewards changed to a points system based on ticket cost. Members earn and redeem points based on a 3-tier fare scale multiplier and the cost of the ticket. Customers could earn 1/2 credit by using a Southwest partner to book any car rental or hotel stay, regardless of whether a Southwest flight is involved. Rapid Reward members can also earn 1 credit for every $1,200 charged to a Rapid Rewards branded Visa credit card, with charges from Southwest or its partners counting double by dollars spent. Members could register their credit card with Rapid Rewards Dining to receive 0.25 credits for every $100 spent at restaurant partners. In early 2009, Southwest announced their first retail partner, Teal Flora Flower Club, from which members can earn 0.5 or 1 credit with each flower order, depending on the total cost of the order. On January 6, 2011, Southwest introduced an updated version of Rapid Rewards. Changes include no blackout dates, seat restrictions or expiring credits. It also adds more options to use points. The new program uses points instead of credits. Points are determined by the fare. Incidents and accidents. Southwest Airlines has never had any passengers on board die as a result of a crash. Southwest Airlines incidents include 2 deaths and 8 accidents. The airline was considered amongst the 10 safest in the world in 2012. Controversies. On June 22, 2011, a March 25 recording of an in-flight transmission of Southwest pilot Captain James Taylor apparently unintentionally broadcasting a conversation with his co-pilot was released to the press. The conversation was peppered with foul language directed at gay, overweight and older flight attendants. According to Southwest, the pilot was reprimanded, temporarily suspended without pay and received diversity education before being reinstated. Captain Taylor also sent an email apology to all of Southwest's employees, especially the crew bases who were criticized. On July 22, 2014, a family was asked to leave a Southwest flight because a father tweeted about a rude gate agent. As an A-list flyer, he is generally entitled to board a flight early. He was told this time that his children could not accompany him. When he tweeted his dissatisfaction, he and his family were pulled off the flight and told that unless he deleted the tweet the police would be called. Southwest has since offered an apology. See also: Air transportation in the United States, Southwest Airlines State Fare Classic, transportation in the United States, the Southwest Effect. References. External links: Southwest Airlines official website, Southwest mobile site, iflice.com, Southwest Airlines media website, Nuts About Southwest Southwest Airlines official blog, Southwest Vacations.